Okay, so here's Othello's final speech. They are standing there. He has strangled his wife, Desdemona. He has learned that he was tricked into killing his wife, or he allowed himself to be manipulated into murdering his wife by Iago. And he has now been taken by the police, or essentially by Lodovico, to be tried for the murder of Desdemona. And this is the speech that he gives right as they're about to arrest him. So it's off to you. So let's be quiet for a while, and also let's hold off on taking me into custody. A word or two before you go. I have done the state some service, and they know it. I've done good things for Venice, and I deserve this hearing. No more of that. He says, I'm not going to dwell on the things I've done right. I pray you in your letters, when you shall these unlucky deeds relate, speak of me as I am. And you remember one way that Iago got to Othello is by appealing to his reputation, that his reputation would be ruined if people thought that his wife was cheating on him with Cassio. And it's all a man has, right, his reputation. So he's very concerned here about how he'll be thought of afterwards, how he'll be written about and talked about in letters in terms of what he's done to Desdemona. Also notice he calls them unlucky deeds, as if they'd happened by bad fortune instead of by bad choices or bad decisions, or by bad behavior on Iago's part even. Speak of me as I am. Now that's an interesting phrase because, how he is sort of in the eye of the beholder, yes. But I think he also wants to speak of me as I see myself, as a whole person. So he wants them to understand from his perspective what's happened so that they'll understand and be able to relate the story correctly. So what's going to follow is his explanation of what he's done and why he's done it in his mind. Nothing extenuate, don't leave out my guilt, nor set down aught in malice. So don't just write in anger either. Then, if you do that, must you speak of one that loved not wisely, but too well. So he says, I was not wise in the way I loved, but I loved her so much that I was driven to this. Of one not easily jealous, but being wrought, perplexed in the extreme. So I'm not a man who easily becomes jealous, but when Iago played upon me, I became perplexed or confused and angry in the most extreme way. I'm not sure I agree with Othello here that he was not easily jealous and that it took Iago to make him that way. He was very quick to pick up on the accusations against Desdemona and to believe them. But from his perspective, what he'd done was done out of too much love, and he was wrought upon in order to become jealous. He wouldn't himself have become jealous. Speak of one also, whose hand, like the base Judean, threw a pearl away richer than all his tribe. Different text has that difference. Some say base Indian, some Judean, but the meaning of it remains the same. So one who took into hand a pearl of great value and was either a base Jewish person or a base Indian, a person from India or a Native American, depending. Base meaning common and not good, that at root, that you're a bad person. So one whose hand, like a base Judean, threw a pearl away richer than all his tribe. The idea here that if you're a base Judean or a base Indian, you don't know the value of something like a pearl, and you will easily throw that away without even realizing that it's of great value. So he's actually interesting because all the way through, the others have called him the Moor. They've insulted him. Brabantio, Rodrigo, and Iago have thrown racial epithets at him. And we saw in the play where he started to take into himself the insults and the poor judgment that was being brought to him when he says to Iago, haply for I'm black. Maybe it's because I'm black that she can't love me and she's with Cassio, not with me. So he's started to absorb the racism surrounding him. When he compares himself to a base ethnic other who doesn't recognize the value of something, he's insulting his own ethnicity. Here, his next one whose subdued eyes, albeit unused to the melting mood, drops tears as fast as the Arabian trees their medicinable gum. So one whose eyes subdued were cast down, even though those eyes are unused to the melting mood. The melting mood would be a dripping mood, yes. So he is crying. I'm not used to crying. I'm unused to crying. But here I am, my eyes cast down, dropping tears as fast as the Arabian trees their medicinable gum. So I'm dripping tears down my face, just as an Arabian tree would its sap drip down its trunk. And notice again the reference to the exotic Arabian tree. So here it is. Here's what we should write in our letters. Set you down this. This is what you should write. And say, besides, that in Aleppo once, where a malignant and a turbaned Turk beat a Venetian and traduced the state, I took by the throat the circumcised dog and smote him thus. So, in this final thing, what you should do is write down that I took by the throat a circumcised dog and I smote him thus. And he kills himself there. So, on the one hand, he's been accused of killing his wife, and he's being taken back to be tried for it and probably executed for it. On the other hand, he will once more do the service to the state. He will himself free the state of the criminal, and he will kill himself. I will take myself by the throat, and I will smite him thus. And he kills himself with his own sword. Notice that he calls himself the circumcised dog. I think that that is a reference to the fact that he was born Muslim, a Moor in Africa. And the circumcised, he would have circumcised would be in Judaism, but also Islam requires circumcision. So he is both doing service to the Venetian state. He is the Venetian who has been bested by the malignant and turbaned Turk, the bad, the other. So he's the Venetian who's defending the state by killing that other, and he is at the same time that malignant turbaned Turk, the circumcised dog who needs to be killed. So he shows a sort of split self here between the general of the Venetian army who defends its racial purity and its justice by killing the malignant turbaned Turk, and also identifying himself as the Moor, and also a dog, the animal, a dog, and killing himself. And again, we see that split self so painfully obvious here in his death. And in this, I think, is sympathy. He simply can't live with himself. And Lodovico, after he stabs himself, oh, bloody period. Oh, what a bloody end to this speech. It's interesting, they are commenting on how beautiful the speech it is. The period would be putting a point at the end of a speech. And Gratiano comments, all that is spoke is marred. He's ruined the speech that he just gave. It was a beautiful speech, and it did come to a bloody end, although that is probably not the reaction I would have, is just to notice how beautiful this speech was. And Othello ends on a kiss to Desdemona, and Cassio, in great respect to Othello, this did I fear, but thought he had no weapon, for he was great of heart.